What a time to be a Duck. Good vibes. Good vibes. Oregon with Derek Harmon now and Peyton Woodyard, by the way, is now up to the second best transfer portal class in college football in the 2024 cycle, trailing only Ole Miss. And Ole Miss has brought in some dudes. I love what Oregon's brought to the table. So Peyton Woodyard is another addition that Oregon adds. And curious, speaking of 24/7 sports, he was the 115th best player in the 2024 recruiting cycle. He had a 4-star composite rating in the 94 range, 94.76, and he grades as a 3-star transfer. I don't exactly get how that works. I don't know if that would have given Oregon the number 1 transfer portal class, but this is a loaded lineup of guys. You look at where Woodyard slots in, and I don't think he makes as big of an impact as Derek Harmon. But I love that the portal moves for Oregon are mostly win now, immediate impact starters, but they aren't all those sorts of guys. So the transfer portal class looks something like this now. Dylan Gabriel, Matthew Bedford, Jay Harris, Atticus Sappington, Cam Alexander, Evan Stewart, Jamari Caldwell, Brandon Johnson, Jabbar Muhammad, Dante Moore, Kobe Savage, Derek Harmon. They brought in Cruz Rushing from Arizona as well, a safety. I believe that is Elijah Rushing's brother, the 5-star Oregon true freshman. And then Peyton Woodyard, the safety from Alabama. So that transfer portal class has got guys like Woodyard and Dante Moore and maybe even Jay Harris that aren't needed this year, that they can come in, kind of develop, get their feet under them, get an understanding for what Oregon's about and how they can succeed and what the plan is, everything like that, and they can be impact guys next year. And I think for Peyton Woodyard, Oregon fans should think of this as a 2024 recruitment because that's exactly what he is. Typically, you add a transfer, even a guy like Jay Harris, who's a running back from Division II Northwest Missouri State, that's a guy who's played college football at the Division II level. Maybe he needs a little bit of adjustment time to the Division I game, but in the spring game, I tell you what, he looked awesome. He looked really, really good. I was impressed. He can be an absolute stud, and he's just a big body in that backfield. But for Woodyard, 2024 recruit, commits to Nick Saban in Alabama, gives Kalen DeBoer the old college try, and after spring football says, no, this is not the spot for me. And he's one of several Crimson Tide defensive backs to hit the portal. They brought in a couple guys as well. Keon Sabb, the Michigan safety, who Oregon was after. He's gone over to Alabama, and so that sends Woodyard the Ducks' way. That might not be a direct correlation, but at the very least, that's how it's gone down at the outset a little bit. But Woodyard playing in 2024, I don't think is a guarantee. Could it happen? Yes. I absolutely think that Woodyard could play with the Ducks or play for the Ducks meaningful snaps in 2024 because the safety room is not the deepest, right? Cody DeCambra, former 4-star, he transferred out, and Kobe Savage came in from Kansas State. Tysheem Johnson is back, and then you kind of got Tyler Turner, the redshirt freshman, Aaron Flowers, the true freshman. Flowers looked awesome in the spring game as well. Here's what I wonder with Woodyard. Is he going to actually be able to step in and play over the top as a true freshman? Because if he's going to be a full-time starter, which again, as we have seen, there are several other examples over the last couple of cycles for the Ducks as well, just because you're a transfer doesn't automatically mean you're coming in and starting right away. We have seen guys come in and sit. We've seen guys come in and just not win the job, frankly. And, I think Connor Soley came over as a transfer linebacker from ASU, been mostly a special teams guy. So I don't think it's automatic, but you do tend to see transfers come in and start right away. But I think of this more as a high school recruit. Now, he's a talented guy. He's a talented guy. I'll have Brian Smith on later this week to talk about, what he brings to the table and where he plays. We talked about him a little bit on Friday's show as well. But if he's a guy, and I think Brian said he plays a little bit more down in the box, but if they like his over-the-top skills and they think he can be one of your 2 deep safeties, then maybe he can carve out a starting caliber or starting adjacent role for himself this season. But I think for the Ducks, Kobe Savage, the Kansas State transfer, that's one of your safeties. But your other deep safety, is it Tysheem Johnson? Because I have not been impressed with Tysheem Johnson's over-the-top playmaking ability. I like Tysheem as a blitzer. I like him in the run game. I like him in short yardage coverage situations. I don't think he's a super rangy ball hawk on the back end. So if Woodyard showcases that sort of talent, maybe he comes in and then it's Tysheem Johnson and Brandon Johnson, the Duke transfer who hasn't arrived yet. Maybe he's a guy, or those two guys are swapping each other out at nickel. And those are, your three starting safeties. Maybe. Or maybe they like Tyler Turner. I don't know. We do not have a depth chart. We will not see one for quite some time, and we can speculate about it from now until the season starts. But certainly having Woodyard in the mix, I like it because that's a position that is going to lose guys after this year anyway. I believe Kobe Savage is done after this year. Tysheem Johnson also out of eligibility after this season. So along with Aaron Flowers, this is essentially just having another talented body in the room who might see the field a little bit this year and could pop and be a starter next year if he doesn't see the field a ton this season. So I think Woodyard is a different sort of transfer for the Ducks compared to Derek Harmon, who is an instant impact sort of guy. But I do like the move. I think that it definitely makes sense. Let's hop into the mailbag here. And by the way, drop all your questions, YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter. If you want priority access and all sorts of other perks, go join the growing flock over at Subtext. Link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch this show. This question from MotoMeister1579. Mailbag question. What Oregon player do you believe has the highest ceiling? To add on to that, which Oregon player do you see developing into a first-round NFL talent, excluding Jabbar Muhammad and Tez Johnson? Well, I don't think Tez is a first-round guy. He's not big enough. He can get drafted, perhaps. Don't think he's necessarily a first-round talent in there. But I think a player that can work himself into a first-round conversation that wouldn't currently be there is Jordan Birch. And I think with the addition of Derek Harmon, that is especially applicable. So one thing I loved about the Jordan Birch addition last season for the Ducks and why the defensive line was so much better and the pressure rate and the sack numbers, it was all better from 2022, and that showed with the defense allowing 10 fewer points per game. I love that move because it felt like Brandon Dorlus was at times the only guy. Like DJ Johnson had glimpses, but he wasn't necessarily as consistent. And Jordan Birch is someone that commands a lot of attention or double teams up front. That opens up 1v1s for the rest of the guys, and they can really shine. And I think Dorlus had an awesome season, not in a small part because, he's a talented player, of course. Having Jordan Birch there helped him reach his full potential. And I think this applies to Birch when you bring in Harmon and you've got Jamari Caldwell and the trio of soon-to-be true sophomores in Blake Purchase, Tatum Tuioti, and Mateo Uyunglele. Sorry, I need another sip of water. Give me a sec. Appreciate your patience. Just trying to give you the best show I can. That's a ridiculously deep and talented defensive line, but having Harmon or Caldwell, or really Harmon and Caldwell next to Birch, I think frees him up a little because these guys are a presence. So I think the more 1v1s, you get that sort of guy, he is a physical freak. 6'5", I don't know what his weight is listed at, but that's a guy who can really, I think, take a step forward and benefit tremendously from having come back to Oregon for his senior season. So I like that question. The highest ceiling, man, that's tough. There are a number of different directions you can go with this. And if you can't put Jabbar Muhammad in there, I'm going to go with Evan Stewart, the Texas A&M transfer. That guy's a freak. I don't really think he got all the chances in the world to show it in the spring game. But if you remember the long pass that he caught, the two long passes that he caught, he pinned one ball as he was being interfered with against his shoulder pad with just his right hand. And then the other long pass he caught from Gabriel was a deep shot where Gabriel and the offense were backed up inside, I think, their own 5-yard line. And he was working on, I think it was Cam Alexander, who they are big fans of the cornerback position, by the way. Alexander, the UTSA transfer, that guy's a stud. Evan Stewart had beaten him by like 5 yards. And it's one thing if that were a true freshman and he's still working his way into the rotation or something like that, but he'd beaten him by 5. You don't see that sort of separation super often. Even Troy Franklin last year in the spring game. wasn't getting 5 yards away. I think Stewart's physical talents are just so immense that I'd say he's got the biggest ceiling. He's also got a ton of room to grow. Like, we've seen glimpses of what his potential can be, and Texas A&M just didn't give him a great situation. Didn't give him a great opportunity to showcase what he can do. Oregon has done that with a great receiving core and a good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel and a great quarterback room in general. So, yeah, I think Evan Stewart has got the highest ceiling. I think Josh Connerly could be in that mix as well at left tackle, but I think Stewart's probably the place I'm going to go with that one. Love the question, though. Keep them coming. We got plenty of mailbag questions we'll get to later in the week, but oh my gosh, I was jittery. I am not exaggerating. I was jittery at the airport because of what Dana Altman did.